Good day everyone, we are the Group 4. Today we are going to discuss the elements of a novel. So let's start. First, setting. Setting is the background in which the story takes place. For some stories, the setting is very important, while for others, it is not. There are several aspects of a story setting to consider when examining how setting contributes to a story. Some or all may be present in a story. So there are several aspects to setting. First, the place. This is the geographical location of the story. Since novels are lengthy, the story may move from one place to another. It answers the question, where is the story taking place? When asked to describe the setting, you may give the general geographical location. For example, in a novel which takes place in numerous locations around Italy, you may mention only the country or you may describe several specific locations. Second, time. This refers to the period of history if the story is set in the past. If the story could happen now or at some recent unspecified time, we say that it is contemporary. If it is a science fiction story, it may be set in the future. When describing setting, be as specific as the author is. When describing the setting of a portion of the novel, you may be able to specify the year, month, and even time of day. It answers the question, when is the story taking place? Novels usually span or take place over a much longer period of time than short stories. So for instance, you may need to say that a novel setting in time is from 1937 to 1956. Third, climate or weather. This is an aspect of setting which is often forgotten, but it can be important to the novel. Is it raining, sunny, stormy, or etc.? If the story begins in the midst of a hurricane, that is an example of climate or weather. It is significant to the story. Lastly, lifestyle. This refers to the daily life of the characters. If a story takes place in a particular historical period, the lifestyle of the characters, for example, whether they are poor, farmers, or residents of the court, is part of the setting.
Next slide is plot. The storyline, the ordered arrangement of incidents in a story. The plot of a story is the change of events that take place allowing a story to unfold. Furthermore, it is the sequence of events that shape a broader narrative with every event causing or affecting each other. Next is exposition or introduction. When we say exposition, it is a useful term when we talk about dramatic structure. It is a beginning of a story and where characters and settings are revealed. In addition, exposition of a story is the opening part in which the audience is introduced to the characters and their situation as the name suggests. Next is rising action. This part of the story begins to develop the conflict, where events in the story becomes complicated and where conflict is revealed. The next slide is climax. This is the highest point of interest, turning point of the story, and reader wonders what will happen next. The climax is the culmination of a story's rising action, which is the name given to the sections of a story. Next is falling action. Events and complications begin to resolve. Reader knows what has happened and conflict is resolved or not. Falling action of a story is the section of the story's plot following the climax, in which the tension stemming from the story's central conflict decreases and the story moves toward its conclusion. Next is resolution or denouement, the final outcome or untangling of events in the story. This is the conclusion of the story's plot. It's where any unanswered questions are answered. The synonyms solution, conclusion, upshot, etc.
Conflict. Conflict is essential to plot, and it is not merely limited to arguments, any opposition that faces main characters. And we can say that without conflict in a story, film, show, or novel may seem boring. And there are two types of conflict, the internal and external conflict. When we say external, it is a struggle with a force outside oneself, such as nature, another person, or event or situation. While internal is a struggle within oneself. It can be mental or emotional. Internal conflict are character versus self. For example, a struggle to make a decision or overcome a feeling. Furthermore, there are four kinds of conflict. The first one is man versus man. It is physical and struggles with strength against other men, forces, or nature, or animals. This type of conflict occurs because a protagonist and antagonist have the same goal and have conflicting goals where they stand in each other's way. Second is man versus circumstances. It is classical and the leading character struggles against fate, life, and etc. Man versus circumstances is when the character faces chance decision or end action. Next is man versus society. It is social and struggles against ideas, practices, and customs. Also, this type of conflict usually occurs because the character has a strong motivation to take an action against the society, whether it be for survival, freedom, morality, or some other desire. And lastly, man versus himself. It is psychological and struggles with himself or herself, soul, and ideas of right and wrong. Man versus himself conflict is intriguing and compelling because of the uncertainty it creates.
Next is characters. So there is two meaning of the word characters. First is the person in the work of fiction. Sila yung mga tauhan na gumaganap sa mga story, novels, and etc. Either sila ay things, animals, or a person. Next meaning of characters is the characteristic of a person. Dito naman is tinutukoy yung katangian ng isang tao. Now, let's proceed in the first meaning of the characters, which is the person in the work of fiction. So there are two types of character in the work of fiction. First is the protagonist. Protagonist is the central or leading figure in the novel, poetry, or any other stories. They are the person who works toward the central story goal. In short, sila yung mga tinatawag na hero or bida sa isang story. For example na lang sa panood na Ang Probinsyano. Ang protagonist doon ay si Coco Martin na gumaganap bilang si Cardo Dalisay. Yan. Next is antagonist. Kung ang protagonist ay ang hero sa story, novel, and etc., ang antagonist naman ay ang mga anti-hero sa story. Antagonist is the opposer or combat working against the protagonist or leading character. And antagonist is creating a main conflict in the story. So, sa Ang Probinsyano, ang antagonist naman doon ay sila Lily, Hipolito, at marami pa na kaaway ni Cardo Dalisay. So, sobrang importante ang dalawang ito sa isang story kasi kung wala ang protagonist at antagonist sa isang story is hindi sila makakabuo ng isang story and hindi magiging exciting yung story. Next, let's proceed to the second meaning of the characters, which is the characteristic of a person. First, his or her physical appearance. Kung ano yung physical look niya, either sexy, mataba, long hair, short hair, and so on. Next one is what he or she say, think, feel, and dream. Kung ano yung mga nararamdaman niya at mga pangarap niya. Next is what he or she does or does not do. Kung ano yung mga gusto at mga ayaw niyang gawin. And the last one is what other may say about him or her and how other react to him or her. So, nadjudge siya ng mga tao based sa characteristics niya and sa mga nakikita nila sa kanya. Next, characters are first individual, round, many-sided, and complex. So, individual characters is a person, specific attribute, such as their demographic variables like age, gender, education, birthday, health condition, and many more. Next one is developing. In fiction, character development is the process of building a unique three-dimensional characters with depth, personality, and clear motivation. It also refers to the changes a character undergoes over the course of a story as a result of their action and experiences. The last one is the static. So, static character ay kabaliktaran ng developing. It is a character that does not undergo inner changes or undergoes a little changes. It is character that does not develop or grow. It remaining essentially the same at the end as he or she was at the beginning.
Point of view or POV, defined as the angle from which the story is told. Ang point of view ay kung sino yung nagsasabi or kung sino yung nagsasalaysay ng kwento. Innocent eye, the story is told through the eyes of child or childlike persona o kilala din bilang first person. Stream of consciousness. The story is told so that the reader feels as if they are in the head of the characters. So, ang bawat mambabasa ay malalaman nila lahat yung bawat reaction or yung mga saloobin o kung ano yung mga iniisip ng mga character na gumaganap sa isang kwento o nobela. First person. The story is told by the protagonist or one of the characters who interacts closely with the protagonist. Ang first person ay ginagamitan ng I, me, we, etc. Yan yung mga ginagamit nila na pronunciation sa first person ng isang nobela or kwento. Omniscient. The author can narrate the story using the omniscient POV. So, ang omniscient POV ay can move from the character to character, event to event. So, kilala din ito as a third person for having free access to the thoughts, feelings, and motivation of all character. Omniscient limited. Tells a story in third person. Audience only knows what the character knows. Only know what the author allows to be told. So, ang omniscient limited ay nakadepende sa narrator kung gusto niyang i-reveal sa mga mambabasa yung thoughts and feelings ng mga character. Omniscient objective. Author tells the story third person also. Appears as true camera is following the characters, only records what is seen and heard. So, dito naman sa omniscient objective, there is no comment on the characters or their thoughts. The reader must interpret the event. So, bilang mambabasa, ikaw yung mang-uunawa or mang-iintindi sa kwento. Halimbawa, i-interpret mo kung bakit ganun yung naging wakas, kung bakit malungkot, or kung hindi kaya masaya yung ending, or kung bakit nangyari yon.
Theme is a controlling idea or central insight. The term theme can be defined as the underlying meaning of a story. It is the message the writer is trying to convey. Often, the theme is a broad message about life. The theme is important because a theme is part of the reason why the author wrote a certain piece. Theme refers to the central, deeper meaning of a written work. Writers typically will convey the theme of their work and allow the reader to perceive and interpret it rather than overtly or directly state the theme. Theme is what creates a memorable and significant experience of a literary work for the reader. And also, it is the author's underlying meaning or main idea. It may be the author's thoughts about. Title of a short story usually points to what the writer is saying, and it uses various figures of speech to emphasize the theme. Examples are Love is Blind, Believe in Yourself, Don't Judge Others, and Decisions Change Outcome.
The three types of irony.
First, dramatic irony. Readers' audience's knowledge of events is greater than that of the characters. The dramatic irony, ito daw ay isang importanteng stylistikong device na nakikita natin sa plays, movies, theaters, at ganoon na rin sa poetry. Storytellers use this irony as a useful plot device for creating situations in which the audience knows more about the situations. It also creates intense suspense and humor. This speech device also emphasizes and conveys emotions and moods more effectively. Like example, the dramatic irony is the apple that puts Snow White into sleep. The movie of Snow White. That is dramatic irony. Second one is the movie of Romeo and Juliet. The love story of Romeo and Juliet. Alam natin na si Romeo at Juliet ay nagmamahalan, ngunit ang kanilang parents ay magkaaway. Kaya naman silang dalawa ay pinaghiwalay. Ngunit ay hindi dito matatapos ang kanilang love story. Pero in ending, pareho silang namatay. So that is a dramatic irony. The second one is the situational irony. Situational irony is an outcome that turns out to be very different from what was expected. The difference between what is expected to happen and what is actually does. Example, yung stasyon daw ng local fire ay nasusunog. Pero alam natin na ang local fire station ay isang safe na lugar. So that is situational irony. The last one is verbal irony. Verbal irony is a figure of speech in which what is said is the opposite of what is meant. So, ito daw ay kabaligtaran ng sinasabi ng isang tao. For example, my father said the food is delicious, but he doesn't want to take another round. It means my father don't like the food. That's why he doesn't want to take another round. The second is the Titanic was said to be unsinkable but sunk on its first voyage. That is dramatic irony. The last one is the roasted chicken was tender as a leather boot. That is verbal irony. So those are the three types of irony: dramatic irony, situational irony, and verbal irony.